Hey everybody, happy Tuesday night. Today is May 7th, 2024. This is Across the Pitch. It's just a dynamic duo today, as Dave is not able to help us tonight as he's doing English things out, on the Eastern Hemisphere. But tonight we are joined by Jose Nunez. Jose, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I just imagine Dave out in England flipping his tomatoes on the grill and pouring the beans on his toast, just doing the most British things possible. But no, you're right. It's just us. I know we've been having we've been trying to be good about having a show a week. So I appreciate everybody who's keeping up with us. But second, we're just running through all these permutations of you and I, you and Dave, me and Dave, and then all three of us, and just swinging around, which is cool, right? Like we're just seeing all different types of connections here. So it's good, man. I'm just glad to be here, dude.
Well, you were just on the road again, so you've had a very busy couple weeks.
I did, man. I was out for a week in Lincoln, Nebraska, / Chicago, then out for a week in North Carolina, and then back again at North Carolina for some other stuff, plus personal stuff with my goddaughter, my niece's first Holy Communion, stepping in for my brother who passed away in December. So it was a long emotional weekend, but glad to be here.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. At least you had a good time with some family, and regardless of the reason, at least you were with family, which is always great. Jillian joins us tonight. Jillian Almany says, "Go Phils!" Like I'm repping my Bryce Harper tonight. Jillian, Bryce Harper. They're up 8-1 on the Blue Jays in the bottom of the 8th, so can't complain with the red hot Phillies. Jillian and Kyle, I believe, will be at tomorrow's little meet and greet event out in Subaru Park. I'll be there as well.
Hey.
So kind of curious to see how that is. I went to it back in when did Marco Fabian join us? 2020, 2019?
2019, I believe.
I have a signature because I was there that day.
And, well, his show's about to kick off in 2 days.
The signature just went up in price, really, is the thing. Yeah, tell me, can you tell me a little about that show? I saw you posted earlier.
Yeah, so I'm still trying to piece it together. It sounds like it's some sort of, I don't know, like these guys, like, of course it's in the US because folks in the US don't know who professional football, soccer players are. So I guess they're pretending to be in different industries trying to find true love. So Marco Fabian is supposed to be someone who just owns a nightclub and suddenly has all this wealth. So he's trying to find a partner, man. Good for him, I guess. I don't know, under Peacock's dime.
I mean, it's a weird show, and of all people from the pick to pick him, but I guess he's, I guess like not known enough that it makes sense,
Yeah, like Ryan Babel's another one. He was a Liverpool guy who ended up in Turkey, playing in Turkey for a while, Netherlands international, and just names that you like. Listen, if you saw Cristiano Ronaldo, you know who Cristiano Ronaldo is, right? So like, it's not Messi either. So it had to be someone semi-retired to retired and good enough to have money, but not be like 7 penthouses across the country. So that's checking off the boxes of Marco Fabian.
Here, this is a question for Jillian in the chat, and she can get back to me when she needs to with this. Who would be the top 4 Union players to be on that show? That's what I want to know from Jillian, because I feel like she would have some good answers. But anyway, the Union we have a lot to talk about with the Union. They just had a very dramatic comeback in DC, which we will discuss in a few minutes. And then they also have the upcoming match against Orlando at home. It feels very good to be back at home. But it's been a bit of a up and down couple weeks for the Union. You were on a riding high after Atlanta. You really felt like this team was going in the right direction. And then you hit the break and you think, okay, they're going to get some much needed rest. You'll come back, do fine at home. And you kind of, shit the bed for 2 games. But you pull off a draw at DC. So I want to hear your thoughts on the result, the whole match, the first half, second half, the whole 9.
Listen, here's what I'll say, right? That Atlanta game, going to Atlanta and walking away with a draw was awesome. In fact, I think that was when that was the start of my, swing across the country type of thing, because I remember
Mhm.
looking out or trying to figure out who that one fan was that she was going bananas on
Oh,
the
yeah, that was awesome.
telecast or whatever, and we were able. Twitter's amazing, right? They were able to pin her down, and I connected with her and promised her and her family a beer one of these games. But listen, drawing or losing to Real Salt Lake is no joke. That's a very very good team, so I don't really discredit that one too much. The Seattle game is one where it's just kind of wow, really 3 goals in one half, like that just
Yeah.
especially at Subaru Park of all places. Now this DC United game, which is probably what we're gonna spend a good bit of the game on, was fascinating in that Jim Curtin still sort of doesn't. I mean, he's still meddling with this lineup, right? In terms of like how he's starting and continues to start the game in such a way that they just are behind, right? So they start off
Mhm.
the back the entire time, and then they rely on something that frankly isn't sustainable, right? A world class goal from from Jack McGlynn, and then another goal to sort of just a free kick goal from Bedoya, or I should say a
Yeah.
restart goal from Bedoya. A very very beautiful and smart play, but nonetheless, those are two things that are not going to happen game after game that they're just relying on to salvage points. Having the fight and having the desire to keep it together and try to win despite being down two is formidable, but maybe let's not rely, or maybe the team shouldn't rely on that skill too much, right? In terms of having to come from behind and find these dramatic ways to do it. And the final
Yeah.
thing I will say is, man, good on DC. I'm so happy for him in a way. Troy Lesane is someone that I know I had shared my appreciation for publicly on Twitter with my posts and whatnot throughout the last couple of last year. Um, but certainly in conversations with you and with Todd Lewis of the Free Kick Pod and Jillian and Kyle of the One Team We Agree On, he is a fantastic coach. And I was
Yeah.
actually really surprised that New York did not keep him to be the head coach this year. Now, New York's doing just fine, but Troy brings something very, very different. And I'm just happy that they're doing well, utilizing their tools like Benteke and Mateus Cliche. And frankly, even drafting players like Jacob Merle, who I think is
Mhm.
a Georgetown guy too. So like scoring goals. I think he scored, and I shared this video early in the preseason. He scored a banger when the team was in Saudi Arabia playing against, I think it was like not the Nigerian, it was some African national team that they just went in and just, pummeled in their preseason. Just a really, really fantastic, I don't know, set of I don't know, like picks and squad building, because that these United's too storied to be bad or as bad as they've been over
That's
the
true.
last couple of years. So I'm just very happy for Troy. But again, just doesn't something feels off about this Union team still, right? Like having these dramatic, incredible goals be the way that they find their way back is just again not sustainable. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I must admit, I missed a good bit of the game. I ended up rewatching the game. I missed a good bit getting back to my hotel, but then halfway through the second half, someone was making popcorn at a hotel, and we had to exit the building because
Oh, boy.
so I missed a good bit of it. I missed the McGlynn goal, and I had to rewind a bit. Yeah, what are your thoughts, Mike, on that entire game and everything that transpired that night?
The fire alarm reminds me of college. I went to Rowan, and we had, like, fire alarms every other week for something dumb because somebody was smoking or somebody was taking a hot shower that was too hot
No,
out
this
in
was
Rowan.
popcorn, bro. It was
Yeah.
just Jiffy Pop
Oh,
that stayed in the microwave too long, and it was an extended stay, so it was like people getting comfortable because they were going to stay there for like 5-6 days at a time.
for an
Someone
extended period of time. Right.
Right.
It makes
So
sense.
someone got too comfortable with the, Orville Ornbacher popcorn in the microwave.
Oh my goodness. And by the way, Jacob Merle did go to Georgetown. Good memory on your end. And he's only
Yes.
20. Shockingly enough,
Yeah.
a young kid, very, very young. Speaking of coaches, though, real quick, you mentioned him. How about Columbus Crew and what Nancy's doing with the Crew right now? I know they took down Monterey, which I know Union fans, we're not going to the Club World Cup. Woe is us. But what Nancy's doing with Columbus is pretty amazing, to say the least. And I know you're a big fan of him as well.
Yeah, I am. I mean, he's the one who sort of inspired. I mean, it's as corny as it is. I think it was MLS Cup final, the weekend of my brother's funeral, and one thing I got to say on the microphone was what he said after the game, which was, "Impossible is nothing but an opinion," which totally encapsulates my brother's like view on life, right? So, and that's exactly what he's doing, right? Taking these let's not forget talented Columbus teams,
Sure.
very good players there. Let's not make it seem like he's toying around with like a high school team and suddenly beating Division 1 soccer teams, but doing a formidable job. I mean, look at Monterrey, right? Monterrey is a team that I think is worth 80-90 million dollars. If you look at transfer market, I know that's not a perfect science, but that's the science that Jim Curtin uses when he talks about value. So let's just go with that. Nancy, he's taking a $58 million team, I think, or in the mid 50s, high 50s, and just becoming world beaters, man. I mean, even that Monterrey game, as much as I want Monterrey to win because of Tan Ortiz and some of those players that I'm fond of, including Vasquez, who obviously was torturing the Union and torturing the Eastern Conference for a little while. They Columbus made them look like chumps. The way that they were passing the ball, dominating the middle, it honestly made me question, like, am I watching an MLS team against the Mexican team? Like it felt like the Union playing against Querétaro or some of these lesser Mexican teams, right? We're like,
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense. Monterrey is no Querétaro by any stretch of the
No.
imagination. So for Columbus to do what they did and have been doing is awesome. And the fact that they're continuing to stay relevant, this is where I think they are away from, teams like the Union in a way, is that they are still remaining relevant in the regular season at 5th place. If the Union
This
were
is right.
going through this conference, if the Union were going through the CONCACAF Champions Cup plus the league, I don't know, man. I feel like they would have lost 2 or 3 matches in a row just trying to focus on CONCACAF, right? I mean, think about those years against Club America and those just losing matches in between.
Well, if you think about that year with them, I believe we were in 9th place at some point, like in August, weren't we? And we kind of
Yeah,
stormed,
something like that.
went up the table after that. No, Nate's doing great, and Columbus seems to be setting the bar for MLS clubs right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just hard to believe that he was in Montreal only a couple of years ago, and it
Yeah,
just and he comes here overnight and seemingly turns his whole franchise into around overnight, I guess you could say.
and that's the thing, dude. I mean, like he's doing it on many fronts, right? Because again, 5th place in the league, CONCACAF Champions Cup final. At the same time, you could think about, okay, well, Seattle won it against, was it Leon a couple of years back or 2 years ago or whatever it was?
I think it was.
But
Leon.
Seattle was piss poor that year. They knew where to put the eggs in the basket, right? And what worries me, and obviously I shouldn't care about big corporation or whatever that the Union are, but like, how the hell are the Union going to get into continental soccer next year, right? I have a hard time seeing them win Leagues Cup. I have a harder time seeing them win MLS Cup. And they're not in the US Open Cup, and they're not in the Champions Cup. So, like, how the hell are they going to get into
Valerie brings up the point. They can still go to the Club World Cup if they win MLS Cup. So there's ways. I mean, you just have to hope at this point that they actually pull that off. That's the problem. And Val, thanks for joining us. Go ahead, Jose.
Yeah, and I'm not thinking about the Club World Cup. I'm just thinking about genuinely next year making it to CONCACAF Champions Cup. Like that's going to be a tall task that the Union needs to sort out, because they probably need the money. And honestly, I say need the money as like who wouldn't want appearance fees, right? Plus hosting games, etc. Never mind 50 million that were the evaporated as soon as Columbus scores, their goals. I should say Monterrey self-inflicts goals against Columbus. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I know you and I and Dave had the conversation in the past of like, man, like Jim Curtin really doesn't have the right to select what competition to pick in terms of like what he's going to focus on, but he really needs to just for the sake of the club and in terms of like winning something, never mind like qualifying for something like CONCACAF Champions Cup.
That's the thing. I mean, and we got into this conversation earlier in the year. We've spoken about this last year as well, et cetera. I mean, Curtin is getting to the point, and with these players, and he mentioned this in the press conference actually right after the game this past Saturday. A lot of these players are leaving soon. It's just that's Quinn Sullivan, Jack McGlynn. You can think of players that are just on expiring contracts. There is a window for this particular roster right now, and that is quickly shutting. It really is. So you can't pick and choose your battles anymore. You have to go out and win. You have to try to win the League's Cup. That's as simple as that. Whether we think it's a bullshit tournament or not is irrelevant. It's still a trophy that will have some significance for next year and just credibility's sake. But, you know, at the same time, not having CONCACAF next year may not be the worst thing in the world, considering how much soccer we play. We focus on MLS. I get the argument that CONCACAF is probably more important overall than MLS Cup. I get it. I just want to win something. At this point, just win anything, and I'm perfectly fine. But we had like I said, the very stressful game against DC. What bothers me the most, and I think this is across the board for everybody, is how easily they're giving up goals in the first 45 minutes. I love the energy they're coming out with in the second half. Jim, actually, I think it was this press conference too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jose, where Jim mentioned they had the 4-4-2 flat in the first half and they switched to the diamond. And was that correct for this past DC match, right? Okay.
Yeah, he mentioned it.
So I applaud them for trying something different. I don't think they should just stick to the diamond every single time. But in years past, Curtin has also said that the diamond on the road is preferred. So I don't know. It's clearly it worked in the second half. Was that not really an option in the first half? I don't know. Whatever they're trying to do in that first 45 minutes just isn't working. And it's just mental lapses. It's these little things where you're just scratching your head like, what are you guys doing? They seem disjointed. They seem unorganized. And then they suddenly turn it on. But it's, to your point, not sustainable. It's simply not. And this is why you lost games like Seattle, because you fall asleep for half the game. And I don't know what it goes down to. I really don't. Is it these players being just tired? Or is it the coaching? Is it the leadership in the club like Blake, Bedoya, Glesnes? I can't explain it. I mean, I don't know if you have a different read on the team than I do and maybe have a feeling of what it could be, but I don't know what it is. Are they just not that good? Because I feel like they are good. I feel like they can beat anybody across the country any single night. But for some reason, they can't get out of their own way. And that's what bothers me the most because of how experienced they are. This isn't a team that just got thrown together overnight. They've been through battles. They've gone to Mexico. They've gone to, Costa Rica. They played an MLS Cup. This is one of the most experienced teams from top to bottom across the whole league. And you can't play 90 minutes. That's what bothers me the most.
Yeah, you can't really use the excuse of experience anymore, right? When Nate Harriel already has 80 plus appearances for the team at his age, and Quinn Sullivan and Jack McGlynn, who's coming into his own, and you can't play the card of like, oh, we're just a young team right now. This is the team that has built out of the spine, right? In terms of Blake, Glesnes, Martinez, Bedoya, and over the last couple of years, Carranza and Ua now into his second year, I believe, or third year at this point. I can't remember. Third year. It's a team that has had a spine that has been reliable without really a whole lot of additions. Though you could argue that this weekend, what might have been very different is that Leon Flock's back. Which congratulations to him playing 67 minutes and starting this match. So good on him. Decent match that he had. Did pick up a yellow, so that was sort of okay. That's new for someone who just runs around aimlessly and I remember just when it wasn't Apple centric or Apple solely streams, I remember they would always show the player with the most miles or kilometers traveled, and it was always Leon Flock, like clockwork. So no, I don't think you're wrong, Mike. I don't know if I have a different read than you. Now, obviously, we can really only go off of what we hear from Curtin, right? I mean, in his
Sure.
pre-match press conference, he shares, listen, guys, if it's kind of crazy for some folks, whether it's the Facebook crowd or the Twitter brigade that's saying that, yeah, Blake's out, he doesn't want to be there anymore, or Martinez is pissed off. It's like Jim was, I think, probably the best answer he's ever given. We're like, listen, I have a pulse on what's going on with these guys. They're pissed that the performances haven't been great. They want to be better. They want to win. So like, yeah, they're upset, but like they're fine. Like just relax. And if anything,
Sure.
a lot of this confusion or fear, I think, comes out of, for once, an unbelievable amount of transparency from the league that probably did not make a lot of general managers happy in terms of sharing the every single detail of contracts, right? When their guaranteed contracts are up, whether they have options or not. Because for the longest time, I didn't know what Mbaizo was on.
Yeah.
I had an inkling from a source or two about what Quinn Sullivan, Brandon Craig, and all those homegrowns were on. But this latest round of transparency was so like, it was honestly a gut check. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, my source was right. that's
Yeah.
that's what they had left. So like, okay, this is incredible. So I think a lot of that comes from that, or that fear comes from that. But you're right, man. I don't know. I'd be a coach. I'd be a professional coach if I knew what it was that these guys are not putting together in a first half, right? To give up a goal in the 9th minute, a good goal at that. Don't get me wrong. In terms of DC United's, honestly, even the second goal by Merle, where Benteke is the point person and wins a header, which is obviously what he's going to try to do. But then the defense looks lost with Glesnes giving up space and trying to just wait for someone to make a tackle. I was like, no, buddy, you're it. Go shove him a little bit or rough him up. Like, use bite. Like if he was a Pokemon or something, just like do something. It was just a bizarre sort of where, is the excuse still, Mike, like Glesnes is coming back from a hernia surgery? Like, is that really going to be the excuse at this point?
If it is, then why is Elliott not playing more?
And that's just it, man. Like, I don't know.
He's not playing bad either. I think Elliott's actually done better this year.
Yeah, he's done great. It's almost, he's shown flashes of what he was in, what was it, 2021 or 2022, when he was getting a lot of accolades, or the Union's defense was getting a lot of accolades. If anything, someone who goes under the radar is Kai in a way, right? Because he's doing what he's done, just being consistently good. Yeah. But the team's losing, but he's not, like getting the opportunities to shine per se in terms of being the highlight because the team is losing. And you also have Jack McGlynn scoring 30-yard bangers that are going to be on Sports Center and
back-to-back weeks.
Back-to-back weeks. So, yeah, man, I wish I had an answer onto what it is that this team is missing, but I don't know. Is it fair for me to say that it feels like it's mental more than anything?
It has to be. And so I know the PHL Union, whatever the Twitter pages, posted online after I think it was the Seattle match. I don't know. They said, what's your opinion on the team after this performance or outing, whatever they said. And I said, it's just the Union simply getting in their own way every single week, time after time after time. It doesn't change. That has to be mental. It's just, I can't explain it otherwise. And that again, that frightens me because you have people like Bedoya and Blake and Glesnes who shouldn't allow that kind of stuff to happen in the roster, or Curtin, who shouldn't allow that to happen. But I do commend them for the fight they're showing, because if this was the same, if we had this team from last year playing this season, we probably have more losses. And I don't think that's a question. I think it's a fact, because they're scoring goals this year. Whether they're coming from a 2-0 deficit or not, they're scoring, and they're scoring in different ways too. They're scoring from outside the box, they're scoring from inside the box, they're scoring actually very well off set pieces. That's the one thing that's kind of going on the radar this year. They're doing very well in set pieces this season. And we saw another one with Kai's brilliant pass to Bedoya this past weekend. But the roster's there to be good. And I guess we'll see this Saturday with a tough test with Orlando coming to town. Now, have you watched Orlando at all this season? Because I haven't had a chance to watch them yet.
Yeah, they're shit.
Okay. So
they're,
we're gonna
they're
lose then 3-1. Okay,
no,
gotcha.
and that's the thing, right? We're like Orlando's an interesting team because they have a lot of talent returning from last year, but just not getting it done, right? Like you got McGuire back when you thought he was gone, right? With the whole Blackburn
Mhm.
Rovers saga where he was in the middle of a flight and the deal broke.
That was
And
terrible.
then and then he hung around in England up until there was some sort of resolution. You have I think his name is Pedro Gallese, who is the goalkeeper, El Pulpo, the Peruvian guy, who is,
Mhm.
I think, a really good goalkeeper. I think he's maybe lost a peg or two in terms of the standings for me, and where keepers are ranked. But they have Cartagena, Araujo. They have Jansen, who's the gigantic Nordic-looking dude who broke his nose against the Union a couple of years back, and they showed it on TV when they were realigning it. And most importantly, they have Facundo Torres, who is an unbelievable player. So they have good players, but something's just been missing. And right now, they are, if I recall, I'm looking at my phone here,
They are not
14th.
doing well.
Yeah, they're 14th in the East with a -7 goal differential and 9 points out of 10 games. So, yeah, not great. So, I don't know what Jim's going to put out there, but you also got to think about what it's a bounce. I mean, it's a game at home. I don't if that doesn't fire up that team, I don't know what will, especially against a team that is just piss
I
poor and drawing for, pushing for some sort of victory.
The Philadelphia in me is gonna come out right now. You're not gonna like what I'm about to say. I'm just
Sure, go
gonna
for
tell
it.
you right now. So just to put the numbers out in perspective, and I'll post that comment in a second, Jim. Thanks for commenting. The Union have scored 19 goals this year so far.
Mm,
They have given up 16 with a 3-goal differential.
+3.
Orlando has or yeah, I'm sorry, thank you. +3. Orlando has given up 18 goals this season and only has scored 11. That is very bad. Recent history from Orlando, just to kind of give you guys a perspective of what Jose is talking about. They lost 1-0 at home against Cincinnati. I mean, that's a tough team to play anyway. They lost at home 2-1 to Toronto. That is not that good of a loss there. They drew in Montreal 2-2, and then they lost. They won. I'm sorry, at DC United 3-2. So that was their last win back on April 13th. So about a month ago since they've actually won a game.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm concerned because, to your point, yes, this is your back at home, Super Park. This is the first of 2 home games for the Union, right? But you have the Wednesday night matchup against NYCFC. And a part of me worries that they think Orlando's coming. They're not that good. This is very much a trap game. If there was ever a trap game, this would be it. I thought the Seattle one was it too, but I mean, I guess they proved me right in that regard. But I am concerned that they overthink the lineup a bit, considering Wednesday's right around the corner. Maybe they don't. I don't want to see them get complacent. I think that's what happened with the Seattle match after RSL. You think RSL is a good squad, is what it is. We lost off a wonder goal. Fine. Seattle's coming. Don't worry. We're going to take care of business. And it didn't happen. So
Well,
that's my
let,
concern.
let me share this, and maybe this will spur another comment out of your mind. This
Sure.
is a game that has to go on without Carranza because of the accumulation of yellows.
Oh, damn it. So
So
that
you're
means
looking
Carranza anytime goal on Wednesday is a sure thing. But go ahead.
okay. So there's no Carranza this weekend. So you're
Yeah.
looking at a what, like Donovan and Ua partnership up front.
No,
Like,
it's not going to be. You're not going to put the two of them together. It's probably going to be Ua and Quinn.
okay, but and there you go. So you're playing players out of position again, and that's just it, right? Like it's such a tricky game that the Union will want to win, but also not overlook or underlook both playing against Orlando, but also preparing for New York. So it's listen, I don't envy the job that some of these coaches have because I don't know how to do it. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they, work with professionals the way that they do, especially with Jim, who's been at the helm for as long as he has. But this Orlando game has me feeling a little weird, especially with no Carranza and probably no Blake.
Yeah, Blake's going to be out
Congratulations.
for a while.
Yeah, congratulations, Andrew Rick, on your homegrown contract. I want to be very thoughtful and very clear with people. He has earned that contract.
Mhm.
Like, it's so easy to blame it on the short-term loans, but I'm fairly certain that if the club did not feel comfortable with Rick, they would have gone and found someone else like they did with Semla, right? They found Semla because they
Yeah,
didn't feel comfortable with the situation of Trent or Rick. So when you talk about the kid getting his contract, just be happy for him. Don't blame it
yeah.
on the loans, right? I mean, Jim has spoken volumes about the kid in terms of like it was a matter of fact. It was a
We've
matter of time.
we've seen him against Wrexham. I mean, we've seen him play these really nice performances
Hmm.
so far. Rick's a good player. If you haven't checked out Andrew Rick yet, he's really a solid kid.
Yeah,
Um,
Union 2 games. This kid's got good distribution, does
yeah,
well on a one-on-one, great at penalty shootouts, which the Union twos tend to get themselves into, or at least the rules allow it to happen, right? Where the games, it's like Leagues Cup style. There's no draws in a way. There's a penalty shootout at the end every single time if there's a draw. So that kid's good. So I mean, I saw some folks who are our peers in terms of press not giving the guy credit in terms of just blaming it as well, he got it because of the short-term loans running out. It's like, well, give him credit for practicing with the team, give him credits for sticking it out, and
yeah.
honestly, like, it's a homegrown contract. Just honor it, right? Like, just, I don't know. I get caught up on the verbiage that some people use.
No, listen, I don't blame you. One comment that Jim has is, are they playing down to their competition?
Probably.
I don't know. I don't disagree with that. I think it's a good point. And Blake's injuries do worry me as well, Jim. I think it's a fact, and Curtin has mentioned this now for a few years. They don't have that superstar to take over games. All 11 have to play highest possible, quality every single match. And I think that's just tough on players to do, especially when they aren't the superstar caliber, because they just can't take a play off. You cannot take a play off in the Union ever. You're not going to have somebody covering you that's just this world beater week in and week out. So that might be it too. Maybe it's just a mental thing where they can't keep it at 100% each time. Again, I don't know. But in terms of the Orlando match, and think something that maybe I'm overthinking here, Jose, and you mentioned Leon Flock. I'm a little concerned that Bueno hasn't gotten more time.
Hmm.
And I feel like this Orlando match is a perfect chance to see Bueno in the mix. Um, I don't know why. I worry that the Union again go with Quinn Sullivan at the top. They're going to throw Bedoya on the right hand side of the diamond again, even though he's played a pretty good amount of minutes recently.
Yeah.
But I think his performance on Saturday has earned him another start on this coming Saturday. I don't necessarily agree with it being done. I think Bueno deserves some time. And Jim has flirted with the idea of having Martinez and Bueno on the field together. Can we try mix something up and put Bueno on the right or put Jose on the right and do it that way and keep one of them at the 6? I mean, if there was ever a team that you could do it on to try, I feel like Orlando would be the one.
Well,
But
they did do it against Seattle, uh,
they did.
right?
Yes,
Where,
you're right.
yeah, because Bueno was there, Martinez was there, and they resumed the game with them on the field. Obviously, a whole other slew of things happen in terms of substitutions and replacing people in rosters due to loans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the experiment did happen, and it lasted 46 minutes with obviously going down 3 goals. So the Union bringing in Jack McGlynn, and I can't remember who replaced Martinez, but nonetheless, it just Bedoya, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Um, so the experiment has happened, but no, you're right, man. People in my immediate orbit know that I have been sort of wondering about this too, right? The guy gets this contract extension,
That's exactly it. Go ahead.
had a wonderful Leagues Cup, gets rewarded for it with playing time last year, gets this contract extension, choo choo stays. I remember longer, whatever. In the off season, but now has not seen the field too much this year. I wonder onto like what gives, like what is it about, like what is he not doing, or is it a result of just everybody playing really really well? I I, I don't know. I don't know what it will take. What I do hope is that, and this is kind of this is kind of damning in a way. 138 plus 137. So you're looking at
275.
275 minutes so far this year. Yeah, look at you,
You like
quick math.
you like that?
2 plus 2 is 5. Quick math. Yeah. Uh, it makes you wonder what's going on. And if Jim's idea of it is, yeah, we're saving him for Leagues Cup, it's like, well, what an awful thing, because there is a world where Bueno does go with Venezuela for Copa America. Is it unlikely? Probably, considering that he hasn't played a whole lot.
Yeah.
But like, when are you going to play him then, right? Like, if he was just a depth piece, and this is where I think the next, and I meant to say this earlier, the next wave of uncertainty with this team, or doubt casted by, I'll be part of it. To be completely blunt and honest with you, I'll be part of the noise making in terms of this. Once the MLSPA releases salaries, I already have my Excel sheet ready to compare the percentage bumps that people are getting year over year for the Philadelphia Union. I just want to see it all. And Bueno's one of those where I'm like, okay, how much are you making now, and how little are you playing? Like, was that a good decision? Like,
but okay, so then here's the contradiction in the room. Okay, Jim Curtin says out loud, Chris Donovan is over Baribo,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Which I mean, credit. Listen, if we want to say credit to Rick, credit to Donovan. He's not doing anything wrong.
dude,
This kid is he's
yeah,
playing. He's just playing as hard as he can. He's had some actually very important goals for the team over the past year and a half. Like he had the New England Revolution goal, right?
Leagues
He's not a
Cup
bad.
goals and assists.
He's not a bad kid. He's not a bad player. Yes, he's not the best player, but he's not a bad player. Anyway, I digress. I like Chris Donovan a little bit.
Mike, I was on the same boat as you. I said it
No,
where people were, like shitting on Baribo or whatever. And it's
yeah.
like, if anything, be happy for Chris
Congratulations.
Donovan, like
Yeah.
dethroning a guy who was worth or cost the team $1.5 million, if anything. And I said it online, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but like,
No.
Chris Donovan, send that clip to your agent and demand more
Yeah.
money next time around, because you just beat out someone who is making $700K a year to do nothing.
Literally nothing. I have done more work at that field than him. I think the argument is that okay, Chris Donovan has earned the minutes over Baribo. Fine,
Sure.
right? Leon Flock has done nothing for 9 months. Okay. People have had babies in the same time that Leon Flock has been on the bench. How has he earned it over Bueno? Because in my opinion, am I happy that Leon Flock started a game and he's getting minutes? Of course. I'm happy for Leon. He's a great kid. I want to see him at full potential because we saw 2 years ago what he can do at full potential. I think that offensively he has some work to do, but again, we don't know yet what that is because it's been so long since we've seen him. But why hasn't Bueno then? Vince,
Love
I love
Vince,
him.
man.
Yeah, Vince, you're the best. You're the best. But what has Bueno done or not done to then get leapfrogged by Leon Flock, or was it just a one-game thing? I don't know. I'm just using Jim's logic there. That's all I'm doing.
I'm fairly certain, and I'm not divulging any, information that's secret, but like it really does feel like Jim is week by week, and yeah, there's some guys and I think he might have said as much, so maybe I'm not crazy, but like he's got his guys that will start, right? Like Martinez, surefire bet. Blake, surefire bet if he's healthy. Carranza, Ua, though he's sort of like walked the line of being in the shit house and being a starter. But like, it really does feel like Jim does honestly, and credit to him, rely in seeing players who want to play perform at practice to be able to make the cut, right? To be able to make the starting 11, never mind the 20 that make it to the roster, right? Because if you make the 20, you get a percentage, you get some sort of payment. If you start, you get a different type of payment. If you feature, you get a payment, and they sort of stack up in a way, right? Depending on the situation. So like, they got to earn some of those bonuses, appearance bonuses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like, good on Jim for doing it that way, but it's also kind of like, yeah, you're right. How do you explain it to this guy, Jesus Bueno, like, hey, Choo Choo, you're not gonna be starting, but the guy who's been away during, basically a maternity for somebody is just gonna step in. Like, that's fair. Maybe Leon's doing something crazy, or I don't know, man. We don't know enough, but it does sort of put a nugget in your head of like, hold on a second, I'm trying to follow the logic here based on what you've said before.
And it's not like we don't have a big enough sample size of Bueno. We know he plays at the caliber of Jose Martinez in terms of effort. You know that he's not practicing half-ass. You know he's giving it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And Bueno has done it the hard way. Again,
Yeah.
let's credit these players. You know, I never told you this story, actually, Jose.
U2 guy.
Yeah, I never told you this story. I don't think I ever told anybody this story. It just
Oh,
stuck with me. I don't know why. So
skeletons.
no, it's and I don't want people to read into it. I don't. I'm just something that it just stuck in my brain. I don't know why. So 2022 Eastern Conference Final, they win the cup. They win the tournament, right? And they go into
Yep.
the mixing room.
Yep. I was very drunk.
I remember Bueno sitting there on the floor on the side, just like sitting there quietly by himself. Everybody's going kind of nuts, and it was just for a moment. Then he got up and kept going. But I remember like it just stuck in my head. Like this kid is yes, he's part of this team, he's part of this club, he's part of this champion, this Eastern Conference championship, but he's still very much in this development of not being used, going through Union 2, going back and forth, not seeing any first team minutes. And then you finally have that breakout year, and I was happy for him because at that moment just stuck in my brain for whatever reason. And I'm like, okay, 2024 is his year. This is his year to shine. He's going to be like the Quinn Sullivan and Jack McGlynn's and Nathan Harrells who are just going to take it by the reins and run with it. And he's again being pushed back to that backup role. And credit to Bedoya, who's actually had a great impact this season off the bench.
Yes.
And credit to all these players who are making it difficult for Bueno to see minutes. But going back to my point about Baribo probably weeks ago, you still need to play your players' minutes. It's not like it's Macania, who's like far down the lineup, or even Ngabo, who's further down the roster. Bueno is a piece that is depth that needs experience and minutes. You have to play him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to see him be disgruntled and want to leave because he's not being used. That's just me. I like Bueno. He's a great kid.
No, it's and you're right. It's almost like that chicken or the egg situation, or more commonly used of like, with folks in our generation who are like, hey, I'm applying for a job and I need experience, but I need someone to give me a shot to get experience, right? So it's like, it almost feels like he's falling into that cycle. I want to correct something I said. I was very drunk that night, but I was not doing press work. the 2022 conference final, that my brother Diego was with me. It was one of those last couple of things that we did that was awesome. That week was incredible with 2022 conference champion, and I think the World Series were also going on that week, I think, or shortly after or something like that, because I remember my brother sticking around and doing both.
We lost the MLS Cup and the World Series in the same day.
Yeah. But what I was gonna say is with Bueno is, you're right, man. It makes you wonder, and if someone who's watching, listening, whether it's live or in a recording or whatever, and can send me a clip from previous years, maybe 2-3 years before I started getting really, really involved with doing press and getting involved with listening to press conferences or whatever. But like when Jim says that decisions have gone against X player, what does he really mean? And I've been wanting to ask him this, but I'm not going to do it during a press conference because obviously that's not the right forum. I'd love to, and I'm sure I'm going to get an opportunity at some point to just ask him, like, what do you mean by this? Bueno did have some injuries during his breakout year with his ankle that set him back a bit. In fact, I think he was with the Venezuelan national team camp where he had to depart because of an ankle injury. So there was that. And then he got another call up, and I think his other ankle was goofed up, and he had to be dropped from the selection, etc. So that's part of what I think he mentions by decisions going against them. But like, what is the definition of the decisions that have gone against the player? Because whenever I think I have personally asked Jim about, players that, got a new contract, hasn't been playing, like, how do you involve them again? And, Jim does a great job, and he's PR trained of like, yeah, he's done a great job, true professional, practices hard every single week. I love this guy, but decisions have gone against him. What the fuck are these decisions? Like, what is it? Is it that someone else is playing better? Then just say that.
Can I say also, it's not like Martinez has had a great season.
No,
let's call it for what it is. That's one of the things that's also going under the radar this year, I think, at least in my opinion. Again, I'm not a big soccer tactician, whatever, just eye test alone. I think Jose Martinez has not had that great of a season. And he's been banged up a little bit too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind seeing Bueno come in for one game and just give Martinez a mental break too. Not even just physical, just a pause. Again, these are long years, and Vince mentioned Leagues Cup, and obviously we have MLS playoffs coming, hopefully for this club as well. And give Bueno a chance. He's, to Frank's point, that was 2023 was his big year. He proved it. What more does this kid have to do? There's no way his training has dropped off that significantly. I mean, granted, we're not in training, so I want to act like I am. We're not. I cannot picture Bueno being a poor practice player. That's just, he doesn't have that heart. His heart is like Brujo. He's going to play 100% every single time.
Yeah, and you're right. Like I've tried to make it out to the last, I think it's like the last 15 minutes or the first 15 minutes of practice, and then the press conferences on Fridays, et cetera, et cetera. But like, it's very tough with our actual work. We do journalist work, but we're not like, full-time journalist type of thing. Just to be super transparent. We show up to as much as we can. I've showed up to press conferences that are just, random, like the end of season type of thing, or I know I've done a really good job of supporting Union 2 in terms of coverage, and because I appreciate what the club does in terms of developing youth, but we can't be at everything. Just isn't our job. It's not putting food on our table per se.
The union, I don't get paid for this, guys. That's
right.
what Jose's means.
So it's interesting to see that, like, okay, if Jim is genuinely a practice manager, that's fair. But is it really that bad? Like what's going on with and again, I think the math is going to be interesting, and it should be any day now, maybe the next week or two, maybe a little bit longer. I could be wrong. I'll have to look at the release of last year's, but the spring salary guide should be coming out soon, and I think that's going to add an added level of criticism for players, right? Like, I'm gonna look at Jack McGlynn, what he's making, and think to myself, that's not nearly enough, right? Because I think he's making like 180 a year when he's playing far better than that. But then you have, again, like Ty Baribo. He certainly didn't make less money this year than last year. So 700,000 was last year. He's either gonna match that or make more this year in the way that they structure his contract, I'm sure. So the criticism comes with the transparency, and again, big ups to the league for sharing that contract. Josh Giddey still playing basketball despite all those allegations.
Yeah, they said that it was not like conclusive or something like that. It was,
oh my god, I'm turning on to Oklahoma for the first time.
I think she pretended that she was 18 or something along this. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, he's still playing. Oklahoma's they're a very young squad. Oklahoma's average age is like younger than some of these college teams. They're that young and good.
I see that Chet guy, and I know we just took a gigantic detour, but seeing that mop going up and down the court of Josh Giddey made me think, wait, wasn't this guy accused of having sex with a minor?
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
NBA gonna NBA.
Yeah. Look at you get into basketball for a minute. So Frank mentions he worries that Bueno be held accountable for the Seattle debacle. You know what, Frank? I wouldn't say that as that far. I wish the Seattle game was just a normal game, not 3-0, because I think that was Bueno's chance to make a name for himself, and he couldn't, because the whole game plan goes out the window as soon as you get down. Yeah, as soon as you get down to that halftime score, you're like, well, there goes my chance to make an impression on this game, because now everything's changed, and now they have to go for offense.
And listen, if I don't want to go off of this, but like if you look at statistic sites like FOTMob, right, where they give rankings to players, like despite Bueno playing only 46 minutes, like his 46 minutes were better than Martinez's, for what it's worth, in terms of the rating that the site gives.
Like,
and they're usually
plus minus type of thing.
Yeah, he got a 6.6 out of 10, while Martinez, obviously with his crazy debacle of a first goal in terms of losing possession to Rui Diaz, Martinez finished with a 6.1 in 46 minutes worth of play and unleashed a very wild tweet at halftime. So, like, yeah, I think Bueno's in good standing. No way. Mikel Ua played 81 minutes and had a ranking of 6.3. So, like, yeah, longer time, more time for him to fuck it up, but nonetheless, like, Bueno, I don't think Bueno is going to be the I don't know, the sacrificial lamb per se of that Seattle game. I think it was just the cohesive fuck up, honestly.
I agree. Well, listen, we have two very important matches coming up. Not even just because they're at home, but these are Eastern Conference games we're playing. I mean,
Yep.
we've been playing the Western Conference more than I would like. I can't stand it. But we pull off the 1-1. I'm sorry, the 2-2 draw against DC. You get 1 point against them. That's fine. You need to have points in these next two matches. If you don't win both, which I'm hoping they do, especially against Orlando, you need to have at least a consecutive game streak of unbeaten matches getting pieced together here. You can't keep going back and forth. So Wednesday, we know Carranza is going to be starting up top on Wednesday. I don't know how many minutes Ua gets on Saturday, considering Wednesday's right around the corner. Jim has mentioned, though, they're actually, statistically speaking, the Union are very good on Wednesday nights, so that's something to keep in mind. I don't think there's going to be too much of a rotation because of that. I think fitness-wise, they're able to handle it. So I do think Ua probably gets significant minutes on both nights, especially Marcus Anderson's still out. As of right now, he would still be out with a lower body injury. I think it's a leg injury for Marcus Anderson, so we're not sure on his status at the moment.
Oh, I can tell you. Give me a second. Jim
okay.
talked about it. The one press conference. Yeah, I think it was his quad. No surgery, but it was enough to keep him out a few weeks.
Okay, so he's not going to be around for a bit. Valerie says, while we're talking about other teams, Pittsburgh Riverhounds lost to FC Tulsa tonight. I'm sorry,
so
Valerie.
On the 29th of April, Marcus Anderson is out 3 to 4 weeks with an injury.
29th of April. So he's due to come back then fairly soon. Hopefully, knock on wood. But anyway, what's your lineup prediction for this weekend? I'm personally thinking, well, Semele Nets is obvious. You're gonna have Kai Wagner. I think you're gonna see Jack Elliott in the back line, along with Glesnes, unless he puts Lowe in there, because I think Glesnes has had a shaky couple games. And then you're gonna have Nathan on the right as well. I don't see Olivier playing this one. I want to see Bedoya on the bench. I do. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I think you're going to go Bedoya, Martinez, McGlynn, Gosdog, Quinn, and Ua. What do you think?
I think you nailed it. As you're saying, and I'm like piecing it together. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But I think it's a coin flip in terms of Glesnes and Elliott, right? To try to rotate these center backs a little bit, because again, I know the Union were gun ho, or maybe it was, I should say, maybe it was Jakob Glesnes who was pushing for it. But I feel like him chasing that record of the streak last year was what drove him to the ground and really destroyed his body, because I forget what the record was, but he broke some sort of record for consecutive appearances.
The most consecutive was 100 consecutive matches or something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. I felt like it was a higher number of some sort, but nonetheless, I think that he chased, or the team helped him chase that record, and obviously he probably gets a lot of latitude on what he wants to do in terms of like injury and stuff like that. There are players that can just say like, yeah, I have a knock, but I'm good. Like play me. I think he's one of those, much like Blake. But I think your lineup is sound. I'm just trying to figure out like bodies off the bench, right? Like Donovan comes in, Flock comes in,
Bueno,
we spoke about him just now, but like after that, it's just such a gigantic drop in terms of quality when you think about that depth, right?
But that's why you don't start Bedoya. That's exactly why.
And that's just it, dude. Like I get that, but for you basketball dorks, but like the plus minus with Bedoya is just so good when he's on the field this year.
He again, this is a topic probably for another day. But if you look week after week, Bedoya has been, I'm trying to think out loud here, top 4 player on this team this year. If you're going to think Quinn Sullivan, Jack McGlynn, Alejandro Bedoya, Oliver Semele. Those have been the 4 most.
I would put Carranza at 4.
I'm sorry, and Carranza. Carranza, so Semele would be 5. If you're thinking the top 5 players of the Union team this year so far, and I'm not discrediting Gosdog. I think Gosdog's played fine. Actually, I like that he's scoring goals in free play, in open play rather, and I like that he's contributing in other ways. I think you have to make a legitimate case that Bedoya's having almost a better season than 2 years ago, just by how he's impacting this team. So I think, and Valerie mentions Kai. Yeah, Kai's had a good season. Well, his left foot's getting better with those crosses from open play. Set pieces obviously have been the bread and butter for this team so far, and Kai's a big part of that. But I think you have to really consider Bedoya as a bench piece because of how well he's played in that role. And it's not to say he doesn't deserve to start. I think that's just when you have such limited depth behind you, and you know Baribo is basically useless at this point, and then Marcus Anderson's gone as well, and Carranza's gone on Saturday as well, you really have to consider, okay, I don't think I can start Bedoya simply for the fact that I need some depth back there. So you throw Chris Donovan and say you run your heart out for 90 minutes, or actually what they're probably going to do is they're probably going to do some sort of weird formation where Gazdag is like a false 9, but he's actually playing with somebody else, be like a second 10, and Ua is just a lone striker up top.
Yeah.
So then in that case, it's probably going to be Ua, Quinn, and Gazdag. Gazdag drifts up, and then you're going to have – I'm sorry, Quinn probably drifts up, and then you're going to have – I don't even know what else after that.
You know,
McGlynn.
I just thought about this. This could be, and maybe it's due another congratulations, but like, not that he's going to touch the field, but I think this is going to be the first time we might see David Vasquez on a roster sheet for the Union. Just signed a homegrown deal.
He's a forward, isn't he?
He's like a midfielder, but nonetheless, I think he'll probably be on the roster squad. Nick Pariano's out; he's injured, and Gabo will probably show up as long as he's healthy. But Anderson's out. Carranza's not going to be on the roster sheet. I'm just thinking out loud of like another set of firsts of like, oh, David Vasquez might be getting his first roster appearance for the Union as a fresh homegrown signing.
I think you're right. And now that I say more of these things out loud, I think they're going to go with that 2-10 system against Orlando. I think that makes more sense.
If there's a time to experiment, why not with the second worst team in the league or second worst team in the East? That probably in the league too, honestly. So, Jillian and Kyle have been incredibly loyal to showing up to Union 2 games. So kudos to them. I've just been watching them on YouTube when I get a chance.
People who don't know Kyle and Jillian, for one, they're awesome. Two, the mileage on their car must be through the roof because they do not live close to Super Park. So I commend you guys for making it down to back-to-back games sometimes. But anyway, we have some thoughts on this upcoming game on Saturday. We'll do score predictions and stuff probably on Friday once we kind of get a feel for the injury report and lineups, just to kind of get an idea. But this is Across the Pitch. We try to record once a week, at least every 10 days. Jillian, no problem. Jim says they're amazing. They are. They're great people. And I'll be seeing them tomorrow night, so we'll have a beer. Again, this is Across the Pitch. We record once a week or so on the AAT Sports Network. This Saturday, I will be at Super Park. Jose, will you be at Super Park on Saturday?
I believe so, yep.
Okay, so if you're at the tailgates, say hi to us. We're nice people, I swear. I try to be, at least. It depends. And if you follow
question.
Yeah.
Can you smoke a cigar at Union Yards outside of the building?
Ask Kyle and Jillian. They'll probably know. But maybe. I'd hope so.
I'm going to go ahead and say no, since it's more of a family-friendly type of thing than just an open parking lot like the Sons of Ben.
So then walk over 15 feet and we'll smoke a cigar together. How's that?
Now I'm going to feel like someone in the 90s, right? That have to walk outside of the restaurant and take a smoke break.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Valerie says they have fire pits. So if they can have a fire pit, that means you can probably light a cigar. So there you go.
I don't want to get in trouble with the Union anymore.
Yeah, I know, right? We've already walked that bridge. Again, this is Across Pitch. Embraer1323 on Twitter and TikTok. Jose R. Nunez91 on Twitter. He has his weekly posts on his Substack as well. If you haven't checked that out or subscribed via email, it's good stuff. Jose, you do great work. Anything upcoming? I know you just put out the Sorensen piece a few days ago, but anything else upcoming for you?
Not as of right now. Thank you to everybody who read and saw that Sorensen piece. Actually really happy with it. Enjoyed it. It was fun to meet him and talk with him in the club. I'm not watching right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and guess that they're having a rough time against Atlanta. That's a good Atlanta team in the US Open Cup. But no, nothing right now. I'm planning a trip in August to go and actually see Union B, Hartford against Rhode Island, and try to get in front of some of these players like Michi Galina and Marcus Epps, maybe Brendan Burke. Yeah, Connor McGlynn with Rhode Island. So trying to work on that trip with my wife, so it's a nice long weekend away from the kids, seeing her cousin who has a home and has season tickets for Rhode Island. So trying to work on scheduling that and reaching out to their media department. But I have some player names requests that I put out to the union. Andrew Rick could be one sitting with me for a conversation. One of our latest homegrown signings. So stuff is cooking. It's just taking a little bit of time, and I appreciate everyone who sticks around for the ebbs and flows of the content creation per se.
It's not easy. As Jose says, we don't do this full time. We both have very extensive and full-time jobs and children and animals and spouses and whatever it might be. So we got a lot going.
Got it all.
Anyway, got it all. Anyway, guys, have a good night. We'll talk to you soon.